Rockin' Larry Locken, late night, Palladian Light Grid Project, Light Grid Late Night. Hi, I'm Rockin' Larry Locken. Sorry about that bumbled introduction there. It's been quite a day trying to get all this stuff set up, and just the energies have been really strange. But I just want to welcome everybody wherever you are in the cosmos, the universe, the galaxy, wherever it is, in the source that is creation. Of course, I mentioned I'm Rockin' Larry Locken, and alongside of me is Broadway gentleman Joe Garcia. And Joe's going to talk about, I'm going to let him have the floor. He's going to talk about some of these dreams he's had and just comparing them. And then we're going to, after that, we're going to get into talking about sarcastically our favorite things about 3D Earth, drama, squabbling, and things of that nature. So, all the way from Hollywood, Florida, clear from out here on the West Coast in Oregon. Joe, how are you, man? And what about those dreams?
Good. Well, I've been having, I guess what you would call lucid dreams since I was really, really young. I mean, the one of the earliest that I can remember is when I guess I was probably around 2 or 3 years old, and it's I'm awake, but I'm dreaming, and I'm dreaming that I'm being uh, like buried alive. That there's like this giant stone that's like a sarcophagus cover or something that's being placed over me, and I can hear the scraping of the stone being covered over me, and then I can see the stone and everything, and this is when I was so young that I had no idea what the heck I was looking at or anything. But later on in life, I kind of like realized that I was either seeing something from the past or something from the future. I don't know, or something from another life. I don't know. But I distinctly remember this dream, and I used to have this dream um, quite often. It was not just a one-time thing. I would have this would just have this like daydream, but it was so real that I don't know if I was dreaming or if I was awake or what. It just seemed so real. And later on in life, I used to have very lucid dreams where um, I would the the places that I would be were places that I have never seen before in my life. Different locales that different type of city looking different looking type of city escapes or inside buildings or whatnot that I had no idea where I'd seen these before, but they were so real that later when I would wake, uh, I would think back to those dreams, and it would seem to me that uh, I don't know, I was astral projecting and I was somewhere else, but I started to believe, and this is before I even got into anything metaphysical. This was still in my teen years. I used to believe that I was maybe entering an alternate universe or a different dimension or something. And I would always have these dreams, and a lot of times I would remember them for only a short time after I woke up. But last night I had this one dream, and I've been there's it's a place that I've gone to many times in my dream, and it's like I don't know if I'm on a huge building or I'm on a starship or whatever, but it's inside this huge structure, and I don't know if we're like on a giant starship out in space somewhere, or if I'm just in a huge building that I don't recognize. And there's always like these elevators that I'm going in and out of and down and up and down. And last night in this one dream, there was an occurrence where someone was either murdered or in one of the lower levels, and another female either witnessed the murder or killing, or just came upon the dead body, and the scream is what drew me to that person. And I'm going down the elevator, running down the hallways, and I find this dead woman. And so now that like there's I don't know if there's paramedics or the people that take away bodies, or what do they call the coroners or whatever. They're in there, they're wrapping up the one body, and then they wrapped up this woman, and I was kind of like in charge of hauling that woman up to the other levels, to wherever they take them. And she's on like kind of a stretcher thing and with wheels on one end and a handlebar on the other. And I'm like kind of like a wheelbarrow thing, but with two wheels in the front. And she's laying on this thing, and I'm carrying her, and she's like wrapped up kind of like a mummy. And then there's like a covering on top of her, like some kind of a body bag, but with Velcro on the sides. And as I'm going along, I hear this muffled sound, like a moaning. And then I see the covering, the Velcro wrapping around her, like moving a little bit. And I'm just telling everybody, hey, stop, stop, stop. She's alive, she's alive. And we rip open the cover, we rip open the sarcophagus that she was wrapped in. I mean, the wrappings that she was wrapped up in. And she starts coughing, and and I'm patting her on the back, trying to get her to breathe, and she's breathing, and everything's fine. And the thing that really struck me the most was that as I'm touching her, I could feel the body heat from her. And usually when I dream, and I don't know about anybody else, but I don't actually feel so much sensation as have emotions of things. But I actually felt the sensation, and I would feel in other dreams, I would feel the coldness of where I'm at, where I would be looking for a jacket to wear, and I would feel cold, but I felt the body heat coming off of her, and it was so real. And as soon as she looked up at me and these beautiful eyes and said, thank you, thank you, thank you, then I woke up, and that was it. But this dream was so vivid, so real, that I believe that I was there doing something. I don't believe that it was a dream, because I've never experienced anything like that in my life. It's really strange. Anything to say? Hello? Hello? I can't hear you if you're talking. Hello? What's going on here? Excuse me. I had something caught in my throat. Anyway, I don't know if you heard me or not.
Can you hear me? Hey, Joe, can you
I,
hear me now?
yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, that was weird. That was
I
strange.
don't know if you got any of that, what I was talking about.
Yeah, it's just strange. We have things like this happen sometimes. The energy is just, it's crazy. And back to the dreams. I know I was asking you if they were benevolent. They were all benevolent. And then I wanted to also ask you, besides that, these lucid dreams that you had, like the astral traveling, I had them till like I was 6 years old, and I stopped consciously remembering them. I think they were a little too intense for me. Like I was moving fast. Have you had those your whole life, or did you have a lot of them as a kid?
I've had them all my life, as long as I can remember. I've had these dreams, and it's always been in uh, places that I've never seen or never saw. Something on TV that would influence me, or visited certain places. Is something completely alien to anything that's in my consciousness or subconscious. And last night was really, really strange, because putting my hand on her back and patting it and trying to get her to breathe, I could feel her body. It was so real. It was so real that when she looked at me and said thank you, I guess for saving her life, or make letting everybody know that she was still alive, you know. And then I'm yelling at the paramedics. I said, "Didn't you check her pulse? You know, didn't you see that she was alive? I mean, why would you just wrap her up like that without checking on her?" You know, I was really pissed at them. And then feeling her body heat, it was just amazing. And then I woke up, and I can't get this dream out of my head, because I actually feel as if I was there, and I helped this lady, you know, from being buried alive or whatever. It was really strange.
You didn't recognize this lady at all, or anything like that, or did it any of it
Um,
seem like you knew her, or
she had kind of a familiar face, but not a face of a person that I've met in person, but someone that maybe I had seen somewhere, or she was had some notoriety in the realm of my dream somehow. But I really didn't know who she was, or I don't think I've ever met her before. But I kind of, she had kind of like a generic face. She had long brownish blonde hair and big, you know, luminous eyes, you know, and a wonderful smile. And she was like so grateful that I had helped her. And because everyone else thought she was dead, you know, and I'm thinking I'm carrying her along. And when I see the bag moving, I go, "Oh my God!" You know, I rip it open, and then we all come over, and we're all ripping it open, and she's like coughing and trying to catch her breath, and I'm patting her on her back. And it was not just a body heat that I felt with my hand. I could feel a heat coming off of her, like a radiant heat coming off of her, and just like filling me with this heat. And I just felt it so intensely. And then that's when I woke up, and I have since tried to go back to that dream, because sometimes I can go back to my dreams and go back to where I was and continue on the story, and just more or less not necessarily leave off where I was, but I'm in the same place, but it's a different scenario, different circumstances, different people, but the same place. It's really strange. And this place that I'm going to is I can't describe it. The closest thing I can describe it is, if you've ever watched Star Trek: The Next Generation, the hallways and the elevators and the lifts and everything that they have there. It kind of reminds me of that, only bigger, a lot bigger than that. That's kind of small compared to where I was at. Anyway.
wow, it sounds like you were on one of those ships. It's like a city big.
Yes.
I wonder if
That's
there's
what it felt like.
all kinds of things running through my head, Joe. I wonder if one, you were in another parallel reality, you were just getting in tune to another parallel reality you were in, or if three, you were remembering something from another reality from the past, or a past life, or a sign. It's just really strange. I'd be curious. I wish I had somebody on with us that was a dream expert, because I really, I lucid dream sometimes. Like, I don't astral travel, but I lucid dream. It's just bullshit dreams. Like, nothing that makes sense. I mean, but it involves people I know in 3D and just doing shit. It's not, it's lame. It's just, it doesn't make sense. It's all garbled together. But I've never had any dreams like that before that I remembered that clearly. And wow, it hits home right now that you had that dream right now during this time. And then on that ship, it's got to be like there's all these little clues that are missing, and
Yeah.
it's just amazing, man. I'm glad you shared that. Wow. Um,
Is there are no windows anywhere, so I can't tell if where I'm at. You know, if I'm in a city, if I'm in a building, if I'm in space. There's no way to tell, because there's no windows anywhere. There's just these huge hallways and elevators everywhere, and there's stairs every now and then, and uh, it's so strange. I've been to this place many times in many of my dreams, and I always go back to the same place, but I'm not always in the same exact location in that building or ship or whatever it is. Sometimes I'm in another location. Sometimes I'm in like an auditorium type thing where there's like a show of some type going on, or sometimes I'm in a classroom, or sometimes I'm just wandering through the hallways, and interacting with people. And I remember them usually for about a day, and then they kind of like fade away. But most of my other regular dreams, as I call. As soon as I wake up, I'll remember them for maybe a second or two, and then they're gone completely. But these lucid dreams that I have, I remember them for like most of the day. I'll remember them, and then after the second day, they'll just like fade away. But it's something that I've been experiencing all my life.
These are one of those dreams then, like, right, you're saying how, because, yeah, you remember them a little bit, then you forget them right away. Or these are one of those dreams you hold on to. You know what I mean? One of those few handfuls of dreams a person holds on to. And I'm wondering, like I said, I'm wondering if you're aboard a Pleiadian Lyran mothership. What I got to ask you is, besides that woman telling you thank you, you're typically in those dreams, do these people really, do they voice communicate with you, or is it more like telepathic, or do you know? I mean, do you remember?
Um, it seems like it's all that they are talking to me via telepathy, because I really don't see their faces talking to me. I can just hear the voices, like, and they're like in my head. So I guess I would guess that they are being speaking to me telepathically. That's what it seems like anyway. Except for this woman, maybe that's what brought me out of the dreams, because she looked at me and mouthed the words thank you," and I could see the sweat rolling off of her, and I could feel her body heat just radiating off of her, hitting me. And the thing about that is that the place that I'm at, it's always cold there, and I'm always like, whenever I'm there and I'm always looking for a sweater or something to put on to get myself warmed up, because I'm always cold. And when she came out of the bag and she like looked at me, and I could feel this heat coming off of me, just warmed my whole body, and that is what really struck me. And then for some reason I woke up. I wanted to stay there to see what happened to her. Maybe next time I dream I'll find out.
Do you ever remember, hey, do you ever remember, and there's a reason I'm going to ask this, do you ever remember any situations where you were lying in a bed, maybe in pajamas, maybe they showed you a menu with the food, with different kinds of food on it you could pick from? The reason I ask is because this sounds like a story that I heard from a guy named Robert Dean. Actually, he looks kind of like you too, with shorter gray hair, but he's an older gentleman in his 80s now, and he used to work for the military and claims that he dealt with extraterrestrials and things like that. But he had these dreams where it seemed like he was gone for 6 minutes, but he was only gone for 15 minutes. Do these dreams ever make you think that you've been gone for like fucking ever, and it's only, however long it's been?
Yeah, I will be there for days, and days will pass. And when I wake up, it'll only be, uh, minutes or hours have gone by that I've been asleep, but at the same time, I truly in my heart don't believe that I'm dreaming. I really don't. I think I'm actually there, that
Yeah.
when I fall asleep, that my subconscious somehow goes to these places, wherever it is, whether it's another dimension, another alternate universe, or I'm remembering something from a past life. But I feel as if I'm really, really there. It's so freaking real that it's just, every time I wake up from these lucid dreams that I have, it amazes me, and it's kind of draining, because I wake up like, and I'll be like, can't breathe, I can't catch my breath, and it's like I just came back from a journey or something. It's really strange.
They're very exhausting, aren't they? I can imagine. It's
Yeah.
just, you're traveling all night long, and it even says in Bringers of the Dawn, Marciniak says that you do many, when you're sleeping at night, you travel to many lands. You travel, to many different realities. And I'm like, well, cool. I wish I could experience more of it. But it sounds like you're telling us a story of exactly that. You're up on a mothership. You're here doing that. So maybe it's, several different tasks that you're performing up there coming into one. But
Yeah.
yeah, like Bob Dean was saying, he thought, oh my God, my wife's going to wonder where I'm at. Where am I? And he was only gone 15 minutes, but he set up there, and that one dream he had, it was like 6 months, but he was only gone 15 minutes. And it was like, there was parks and all kinds of stuff on that ship. There was museums, there was hallways, there was kind of a lot like what you described. Right. And in and out, his was a little different, the circumstances, but it kind of like yours, in and out of different things up there. It's just really intriguing, man. I mean, I'm glad we're doing this so we can have it documented, because I know I'm not very good at writing shit down and you know, is there anything else that struck you about the dream or anything else that goes along with these that you might want to add or?
Um, no, the only thing I can add is that when I'm there, uh, I don't know I'm dreaming because when I have regular dreams, I know that I'm dreaming. You can tell a dream from reality. When I'm having a regular dream, which I have, quite often, um, I'll have like maybe 10 or 20 dreams a night, and I can tell they're dreams because I can change. I can in that dream I can change the reality of that dream. I can say, okay, I don't want this anymore. I want to wake up or I want to do something else. And I'll forcibly make my mind change the dream to something else to be where I want it to be. But in these lucid dreams, I have absolutely no control. I have to go along with the flow, and I don't have that sense that I'm dreaming. I have the sense that I'm actually there, that I'm awake. And when I wake up, sometimes it's like, wait a minute, am I awake or am I dreaming now? Because when I wake up, I feel as if I'm dreaming that I'm awake. It's a strange sensation. Those
It
lucid
sounds
dreams.
like you're almost in higher 5D, maybe six or even in a 7D with they say that it's like dreaming, it's light and but it's more conscious. Like, I mean, you're talking about you're more aware of shit than in a regular dream when you're having these. It's
Yeah,
almost,
yeah.
it's real, right? And
Yes, it's real. It's so real. It's so real. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's because I've had regular dreams before and I know what a regular dream is and I know what it feels like and I know when I'm dreaming. But these are not, in my sense, they are not dreams. They are actual events that are happening or have happened, and maybe I'm remembering. But at the time they're happening, the time that I'm doing these dreams, I am actually there. I feel as if I'm actually there. It does not feel like a dream at all because a dream is totally, completely different from this feeling that I have when I'm there.
yeah, it's not like you're all over the place like in a regular dream, or are you with this? I mean, it's clear, but it sounds like you're doing several different things are going on with you up there when you're
Yeah, and
having these
I
dreams.
always I always seem to go to the back to the same basic locale, but different sections. Let's say different sections of the building or different sections of the ship, wherever I'm at. Maybe I'm in an underground bunker. That's as big as a city. That was because
It could be.
maybe that's where we live now. Or maybe I'm in a giant building, or maybe I'm in a giant city-sized spaceship or something. I have no idea where
Maybe
I'm at because
or Joe, maybe that's really your reality, and maybe down here that like the movie Avatar, maybe this is just your avatar here. You know what I mean? I was thinking
yeah,
of that
yeah.
maybe this
Or
is
how
your
about the
avatar
movie?
and you're remembering where
Remember,
you're really at.
remember that movie Inception with Leonardo DiCaprio?
I have not seen it, no.
Oh my God. That reminds me so much of what is happening to me. You have to see this movie because when I saw that movie, I'm going, my damn, that's it. That's what's happening to me. Because they have these dreams within dreams within dreams within dreams. You can go like 4 or 5 levels where you dream, and then in that dream you're having a dream, and in that dream you're having a dream, and it just goes on and on. And when I saw that movie, I'm thinking to myself, wow, that's exactly how I feel. That I'm not really dreaming, but I'm really there. But I don't know. It's really hard to explain.
Okay, well, what I was going to ask you was, speaking of movies, have you ever seen the movie Vanilla Sky with Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz?
No, I haven't.
Okay, no big deal. I was going to ask you if that was sort of what it was like. And you do dream these are in color from what you can remember, right?
Oh, yeah. Yes, yes, yes. Always in
Okay.
color.
Do you ever recognize, I know the surroundings, do you ever recognize any of the same people or does it really even, matter?
Sometimes they're sometimes they're the same people, but they're performing different tasks. They're not doing the same thing that they were in the last dream. They're
Okay.
doing other things.
Are they hominoid looking? Are they human looking?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they look just like you and me. Yeah.
Makes sense. Did you ever happen to see, because sometimes did you ever see any like little worker, like maybe one gray with them at the panel with all these humans or anything like that?
Um, I did have a sense that there were people behind the scenes or beings behind the scenes that were making stuff happen, but I didn't actually see it. But I did have that sense now that you mention it.
Yeah, these would be people have reported dreams like this before where they'll see like what you saw, but then there'll be like one little worker bee. They're mainly just, I think, I don't know, assistants. I don't think they're really in charge of running it, but there's probably something behind the scenes making this all go. And who knows what it is?
Now
It
that
could
you
be that. Good.
now that you mention it, last night's dream, there were what you might call assistants that were doing tasks like at console boards or uh, not necessarily computers, but
Yes.
something like computer, you know. And there were people that were doing tasks at those computers that were like that had absolutely nothing to do with the action that was going on. They were just like, I don't know, they were just there and
But
doing
those
stuff.
ones that you saw, they looked hominoid as far as you could tell, right? The little worker bees that we're talking about.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
because those are the tasks. Yeah, those are the tasks that the Grays reported done.
I
You know
didn't
what I
pay
mean?
attention. I didn't pay attention to them because it was like they were just part of the scenery, but I knew they were there.
Much like probably most of the people in those dreams, right? You're more caught up in what you're doing and
Right.
the surroundings, and the people are just kind of well, they're other workers on the ship or other soul
Yeah.
collective on the ship.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Wow, geez, Joe, that's quite a dream, man. I
Yeah, I
mean,
know.
it's
I've been
crazy.
having these dreams for a long time. I've been getting more and more intense the last couple of months. I mean, really intense because I used to have these lucid dreams maybe once uh, every month and a half or so. Maybe every 2 months sometimes. And I would they would like really jolt me. But now I've been having them almost every night. Not every night, but maybe every other night. And they just they're just becoming more and more frequent.
I can't quite articulate how I'm feeling, but it sure seems like it ties into what's going on right now. The energy that's happening, the transparency falling, it's just, it
Yes.
could be just a fluke of a coincidence. But I really think it could tie into what's going on right now. I mean, well, you'll have to keep us updated and posted on those dreams, man. Every time you have one, try to, well, if it's worth remembering, you'll remember it,
Yeah.
so. But yeah, it's just crazy. And you're up there. Meanwhile, you're not dealing in our next subject, which is the things we love about 3D Earth here. Don't you just, hey Joe, don't you just love people that put you down, whether it's in a relationship or whatever? Don't you just love being put down for fuck anything, looking the wrong way, turning right when you should have turned left, stepping the wrong way? Don't Have you ever been in a situation with people like that treated you that way?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I don't usually let it bother me because
No, I try not to anymore either, but it just gets like sometimes before my awakening, it would bother me, because it'd be constant and a barrage of it, and people don't understand star seeds and people with a low consciousness. Like if you're in a relationship with them or it's a family member, sometimes they just don't think anything of insulting you. They just don't think anything of calling you dumb shit, calling you dipshit, getting pissed
you know
off over fucking nothing.
I laugh at that now because um, I, about I don't know 5 or 6, maybe 7 years ago, I read a book by Don Miguel Ruiz called The Four Agreements, and the Four Agreements is it's a book about um, the Toltecs, who are an ancient Mexican civilization uh, that preceded, I believe, the Aztecs.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say
And
real quick, it's a good book. It is a good book, and yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and one of the agreements that really hits home to me and that I try to adhere to at all times is don't take anything personally. Because whatever's happening, if someone is putting you down or has a problem with you or yells at you for whatever reason, I just keep it in my mind that, well, you know what? It's not me. It's them.
Yeah.
They have some kind of problem. Maybe they had a bad day at home. Maybe their wife yelled at them, or maybe, their boss fired them, or maybe, they got cut off in traffic, or something happened in their life that is giving them this attitude, but they're directing it at me, and so I just don't take anything personally
It's
anymore.
right. It's not personal at all. And I try to tell people that too, but I was just kidding you, man. It doesn't bother me. Fuck, I love it. I love being told what a
Yeah,
dipshit I am and everything I did wrong, and I should have went here when I went there. I should have
yeah.
got this kind of thing. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
why
I love it.
I laugh at it.
Well, yeah, and Joe, I can't live with myself if things are in peace for more than a couple days. I need to make up some shit to squabble about. Let's squabble about everything and anything, but not a fucking thing at all. It just, but yeah,
One thing I do try to get away from is negative people, because they just give off such a vibe that I can't tolerate it. I can't be in the same room with them. I have to leave, because it like sucks the energy right out of me, and so when I have a roommate that's like that, and that's why I interact with her, because whenever we're together and like we're outside in the patio smoking a cigarette or something like that, and it doesn't matter what I mention or what I say, he always has something negative to say about it, and I just like, I'll take it for like a minute, and then I'll finish my cigarette and leave, because I cannot take that negativity anywhere, or with my ex-wife, if she's negative with me in any respect, I just hang up the phone, or my kids are not like that, because my kids are totally like me. They're they're star seeds, definitely. They are exactly like me, and so they.
you're lucky there. Mine are too. When you see people, Joe, I'm sure you've had friends or that a couple, then you see them bickering with each other over every little fucking thing. Things that would I've seen these people, Joe, countless people get so mad over nothing at all. I mean nothing, really nothing at all. It would take somebody hurting one of our kids to get as mad as these people get over like fuck, I couldn't even tell you something so beneath our consciousness. We wouldn't even notice that it happened. But it's just like they live in this constant turmoil and I'm like, fuck, man. I mean, have one argument a year or something like that. Jesus, they have a lifetime's worth in a day over any little thing and nothing, and it's crazy.
There's people that have spoken to me about stuff like that, and they always put the blame on the devil, quotes, the devil. That's why they're like that, because they don't have God in their heart and this and that. And I'm thinking to myself, no, that's not it. God is in everyone. You just have to find him. He's inside of you. He's the entire universe is God. Every living creature is God. God is not one entity, one being, one soul entity that says I am God. No, that God is everywhere. God is everything. God is all vibration in the universe.
All
It's
energy, all frequency. I mean, he really is.
Yes, all frequency. That's what God is,
I said
and
he, I mean she.
the reason they're that negative is because they're not attuning themselves to the frequency of the universe. They are trying to attune themselves to their own inner frequency, and they have to let that go and just let go and be at one. Buddhism, they're all the same bag, whereas all these other religions are into like a deity, there's a God up there in heaven, and there's a hell, and I believe in all that crap. There's no heaven, there's no heaven, there's no hell. There's just everything,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everything is one.
Why don't you try telling some of those people that you've ever met like that? I wonder how the reaction would be if you said you're not tuned into the frequency and the vibration. You need to higher your vibration and tune into, the resonance of all that is. Do you think that they would like that answer from, do you think they'd like you giving them that advice? Uh,
I've done that. I've done that, and some of them are receptive to it, and they don't rebut what I'm telling them. They kind of like, I can see them, and I can see the inner workings of their mind that they're thinking. They go, well, wait a minute, what's going on here? Am I right? I mean, is he right? What's going on there? So they're mulling it over. I can see them. I can see the wheels working in their mind. They're actually thinking about it. Sometimes other people are just like, they don't want to hear it. They just don't want to hear it. They said, nope, I'm right. This is how it is. That's how it's going to be. And I go, okay, all right, that's fine with me.
Well, and sometimes too, it depends on the situation and the scenario you're telling these people this in. I mean, you know what I mean? Some of those people that would just walk away, some of them may, in just the right perfect scenario, be willing to at least listen and consider it and mull it over. But typically, it's just like, okay, it goes in one ear out the other. They think you're crazy, whatever. And it's just something that they're going to have to figure out on their own growth path. You know what I mean? It's almost like hurting them and hurting us if we try to harp on them and hammer it home to them.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I don't try to hammer anything home. I'll just give them the information, and I'll just give them my thoughts and my philosophies. And what they do with that is up to them. If they choose to extrapolate on my idea, fine. If not, then, it's okay with me because I've done my part. I've done my job. I've spread the word, I've given them my vibration, and I've given them as much of the universe as I can give them, and I can do no more. You can't change someone's mind. You can't change their vibration. You can give them the information. That's why music to me is like the universal language, because
totally.
People can be at complete odds with each other, politically, philosophically, spiritually, whatever. And you bring music into the mix, and all of a sudden, they're like brothers now, because the music, that vibration that comes off those certain chords and certain notes have vibrate in exact frequencies that do touch our inner core and make us feel euphoric or whatever it is. They give us a change in our mindset, and they make us feel one way or another way. They make us feel nostalgic, sad, or happy, or loving, and it's those vibrations that come out of music. That's why I like to use music whenever I want to tell somebody something. I'll send them a song.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, I'll send them a song.
Well, yeah, and I've maintained for a long time, for a few years now, after a couple contacts with the Pleiadians about music, and they have told me certain bands, and music from the all the way from about the late 60s to into the early 80s. I mean, they have mentioned Pink Floyd, the Beatles, Moody Blues, Steely Dan, ELO, and countless ones, all kinds of different genres of music, even later on. Some of the early gangster rap, adding some of the consciousness to that. But, they have told me that they have actually contacted those first bands that I have mentioned and give them the consciousness to. Well, look at it this way, Joe. We went from a Leave It to Beaver 1950s, black and white, into the 60s, still kind of the same thing. And then all of a sudden, these bright colors, the psychedelic, trippy, hippie, these sounds and music. I mean, that didn't come on slowly. That shit happened overnight, man.
Yeah, it was because I lived that. I mean, I lived through that era. I was in my, I think my freshman year in high school, or maybe the year before that, maybe eighth grade or whatever, or maybe my freshman year in high school when the Beatles and Rolling Stones and all them groups first came out from the English invasion. And before that, we were listening to Chuck Berry, and B.B. King and the Platters, and then all of a sudden, boom, here's this revolution of music that was just holy mackerel. And then the psychedelics, and it was just like overnight. It was just like
over fucking night, man. It was just
everybody was a hippie overnight.
Exactly. And I gotta say this one thing though. It brings up, I was talking to my dad about a week ago, and he was talking about when he was in high school, and it was about a year before the Beatles got here, and he was reading a magazine and saw him in there, and he was trying to tell his sister about him, and she's like, "Oh, his name's Larry too. Oh, Larry, you're crazy. There's no band like that has mop hair like that." And sure as shit, they showed up on Ed Sullivan, several months later. And it just seems to me that it wouldn't have happened that quickly, that progression in music, if it weren't funneled consciousness, like my guides were telling me. And, the colors, the whole sound, everything. And yes, rock and roll evolved as we got into the 70s and all that. But that initial push from I Want to Hold Your Hand to fucking, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds and shit, and your whatever, Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons to Jimi Hendrix. I mean, this shit happened like basically really overnight. You might as well say at one point it did happen overnight in one of those years in the mid to late 60s.
It was just like all of a sudden, like in 63, it was just like boom, like after John F. Kennedy. Well, maybe just a little bit before he was assassinated is when it really started. And then after he was assassinated, that was kind of like, now the whole world, not just the country, but the whole world was in mourning, and they were in a collective consciousness, let's say, because something so horrific happened, and because he was such a great leader, that that kind of like changed everybody's perspective on life. You're right, like all of a sudden, okay, wow, why are we here? Okay.
Well, yeah, he was killed because him and his brother were about ready to fucking turn it rat on the whole thing, the whole Illuminati, their own family, basically. And I mean, so they were killed. But I wanted, that subject's been covered before. But what I want to also ask you, yeah, Kennedy triggered that. What part do you think, if any, the LSD played in the creativity of any of this new music or some of these new inventions we've had electronically? Do you think LSD has played any part in that?
I believe it did open up consciousness to a lot of people that were already in that mindset, in that technical mindset.
Yes.
But to those that were not in that technical mindset, it opened up their minds to other forms of higher consciousness. The love movement, because before, we were just gotten out of Korean War, and people were still, and then Vietnam was happening, and so there was a lot of turmoil in the world, and then here comes LSD, and all of a sudden everybody's mind is opening up. I remember when I've taken LSD. I don't know if you have or not, but when I've taken LSD,
yes,
I'm outside, and the trees and plants and everything that's alive outside, I can sense they're sentient beings. They're part of us. They're part of our collective. They move independently. I would be able to, even now today, without being on LSD, I can be outside and it could be a totally perfectly calm day, perfectly calm, not a breeze in sight, humidity at 100%, and the sun boiling down and not a breeze, and the trees outside will like gently move one way or the other.
Yes. Oh, totally. I've talked about this before too. The tree realms and orbs come down into those trees too and form faces and stuff like that. They're alive. These sentient beings are alive. And on the LSD thing, I don't think that LSD now is needed for anybody born after 19 in the 90s to open their chakras. They were already born with them open. But like for people like you and me from the past two generations before that had a high consciousness, what it did was it opened it attuned it to that. And I don't even think I quite realized it till years later. I haven't done any for 20. It's been about 21 years since I've had any, but I took about, I don't know, 50 hits over a few year period, mainly when I was 15 and 16. And yeah, it really did. But you mentioned the trees. I'd be in tune with birds, everything. Your senses are heightened, right? It's not so much hallucinating on it. You do that a little bit, but it's mainly being in tune with everything. And you know what? I took a walk through the neighborhood and you see things for how they really are. You look at somebody mowing the lawn, and little things that you think about them just become so apparent, in your gut. I mean, you get so in tune with everything.
You see people's faces and their faces are totally different. It's like you're seeing the true them, and then when you're not on LSD, you see their face and it's like totally different.
You know what,
But
I totally agree with you, and I wonder if you'll agree with me on this. Actually, my friend Mr. X, when we were younger and taking LSD together, he described it like this. He said that when you're on LSD, it's like all your senses in your body are going off at once, heightened. You're extreme happy. It'd be like extreme happy, extreme sad, extreme pissed, extreme loving, extreme. All these senses in your body are at their heightened peak, going off at once. And it's just a matter of where you go there. You can go into a bad trip. You can have a good trip. You can go from a good trip to a bad trip to a good trip. Although I found that not as often to be the case. But man, it's, you can laugh so hard that your side caves in. I mean, I thought I was going to die one night laughing. I had to separate from my friend. If we'd have been locked in an elevator, we'd have died. We couldn't contain it. It was so good. But you can get on a bad trip, and the thing is you got to have time set away. I can't believe we'd go to school on it though. I can't believe I would never even take it again, much less I'd go to school all day on 15 on
I
it.
used to drive. I used to drive my car. I had a
Fuck.
1940, and I would drive to the convenience store, to go buy some beer or chips or whatever, and I would see the people there, and I've seen those people like a dozen times before, and I would see them in a totally different light. I would see like it was like I was seeing their inner self, their inner
Totally.
being, what they really like, and you can almost read their minds by just looking at the expressions on their faces, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it becomes so totally clear too. It's just like you see everybody for what they are, and it's just an intense thing. I'm starting to kind of feel the feelings of it. I haven't done any. The last time I done any was 1995, and you mentioned driving. I've only driven once on it. When I was starting to come down on it that last time, I drove a couple blocks to go to 7-Eleven to get something, and man, it was fucking weird. I wouldn't know. I mean, I don't. And I was coming down off it. I can't imagine Joe driving while you're peaking on it or in the middle of the trip.
Oh, I came up to a railroad tracks, not far from here, Dixie Highway, and there was a train going by, and the train, it seemed like it was going in circles. It was like a merry-go-round because it would go one way and then turn around and go back the other way, and just keep going back and forth. And it
Do
seemed
you hear
like it
that
lasted
sound? What's
for
that sound?
forever.
Oh, never mind. Go ahead,
Oh,
Joe.
somebody's calling me. I'm trying to hang them up.
Do you? Oh, okay. If you need to take the call, man, I could talk, but yeah, if not,
No,
go
it's
ahead.
it's not a telemarketer or something. It's nobody important. I don't recognize the number. It's an out of state number, so I don't know who it is. Anyway, are you there?
Yeah, good policy to live by the way. If I don't recognize the fucking number, I'm not answering it either. There's really no point in it. And yeah, so you're driving on it, man. I can't imagine driving on it except for that one time I did, and it was just I was coming. It wasn't really, I wasn't really tripping it anymore, and that's interesting. I mean, can you imagine being pulled over on LSD? Imagine
Man,
being stopped by the cops.
I don't know what would have happened. I
I
probably would have been laughing at him. I probably would have been laughing at him. And I probably would have gone to jail laughing or something. Thinking that was just all part of a good trip or whatever. I don't think it would have bothered me one bit.
No, I had a buddy whose dad claimed that he was pulled over in the '60s on LSD right after he got back from Nam, and he said that yeah he laughed the whole fucking way there, but the kicker is the whole time the cops their heads were pigs. He said
Yeah,
the two cops their heads looked like pigs, and I
yeah,
could see that happening, but he laughed the whole way there, and I mean of course his eyes were probably the size of Texas. You know how your pupils get when you get it. I used to go in the bathroom, Joe. I'd turn off the light and look in the mirror and turn it on, and I'd watch my pupils, dude, go from nothing and then to back up to just cover my whole eyes again.
yeah.
Or just we'd sit there in class and take pencils and rub them in front of our face to watch the tracers on them and shit like that. But I
Yeah.
mean, it's just your pupils get so fucking big on it.
I've seen some weird hallucinations while I was tripping out too. I've done mushrooms also. You ever done mushrooms?
Yeah, we have the best up here. They're called Oregon Blues. Yeah, they're available about 3 and 4 months a year here, but I have not had them again since it was actually about a month before I last took LSD. I had some mushrooms, and what I liked about mushrooms is they were cleaner, more of a body high. But with me, I'd have that. The only thing I didn't like about it, I'd have about a 10 to 15 minute anxiety coming up on it, just that, and then it'd pass. But it was about 10, and they taste like shit if you've ever eaten them raw. God,
No, we used to boil. We used to
we
boil
boiled.
them up
Mm-hmm.
and then mix grape Kool-Aid and a lot of sugar in it, and so that it was like, it tasted like grape Kool-Aid. It was like actually basically electric Kool-Aid, what they used to pass out. I
Yeah.
went to a Grateful Dead concert one time in Chicago at a place called the Electric Theater, and I saw the Grateful Dead there. I saw the Grateful Dead. I saw Spirit. I saw Janis Joplin. I saw Buddy Miles, and I think that was maybe another group that I can't remember at the time. But it was like a 5-6 hour concert. It was amazing, and they were passing out electric Kool-Aid, which of course was laced with acid, and everybody was tripping, and it was like amazing, and that's so after that, that's how when we would take mushrooms, we would take them, we would put them up. We would go out to the cow pastures out here in Florida. There's cow pastures where you can just go out and pick the mushrooms.
Yeah. Here
back
too.
in the 70s, it was not illegal. And after a while, they just said, well, you can't go there because it's trespassing, so they would give you a ticket for trespassing. But anyway, we would pick these mushrooms, we'd take them home, we'd boil them up and make like a tea out of it. And then we would take a bunch of packages of grape Kool-Aid and mix it in and with some sugar to sweeten it a little bit. And so it didn't taste bad at all. And we would we used to trick our friends, they would come over to the house, and they'd say, hey, you got anything to drink? Yeah, here, I got some Kool-Aid, and hand them some Kool-Aid, and then sit there back and laugh and watch them get high, It was funny.
Oh yeah, totally. Well, we carried on from your generation. We did the tea too. I was just mentioning eating them because I have tried them before. Eating them, and they were fucking gross. But we used to use them in tea and Kool-Aid as well. And yeah, I don't know about giving somebody some that had never had any. I mean, it's
Oh no, these were friends. These were friends that I knew that they would enjoy because they've done it with us before. And we kind of trick them because we knew that it would be okay once they got into it. That they would be looking at us like, you motherfucker, you did this to me,
Well, yeah, and it's a shorter high. It'd be one thing, Joe. It'd be one thing to fucking slip them some LSD when they're not knowing about it. I was on a trip one time, and a friend of mine it was actually, I'm going to tell on a Mr. X when we were about 15. We were having a good trip, and I said, oh, well, did you take that other half of that window pane you had? Because we both ate 2.5, but he didn't eat the other half. He gave it to this kid a couple of years younger than us, a friend of our little brother of one of our friends, and this kid was not mentally stable at all. And I'm, dude, no, you didn't. Tell me you didn't do that. And that just killed the trip. It was like we were paranoid the whole night and this kid started acting stupid and weird. I'm like, man, what the fuck did you do that for? You can be on a good trip, Joe, and man, it can take you getting one little piece of information, and it sets it off into a bad trip. That's why I would encourage people. Now, kids don't need it now, but if you were going to ever take it, your early 20s, your teens, that have been the time to take it, because if you got responsibilities, fuck that, forget that. You're useless while you're on it. As far as if you had to take care of your kid, or if you had to do whatever, man, really anything.
Well, the last time I did it, my son was about 6 months old, and we stayed at home though. My wife and I, we were at home. We took a couple of tabs of acid, and we stayed at home, just the two of us, and we tripped out, and it was a loving experience because we were like communicating with my son that could not speak at the time because he was 6 months old, just like baby talk, and we understood everything he was telling us, and we were talking to him and he understood us. It was like we were totally conscious of what, we were interacting on a different plane completely. And, when we were talking about it, we said, wow, do you remember this happened? Remember that happened? And, that was, but that was like a controlled environment. We weren't out on the streets, and, we weren't,
There's the key thing right there, brother. A controlled environment is exactly in a good control environment. And you got to know who you're, like Terrence McKenna says, you got to know who you're tripping with. I mean, you can't just trip with anybody. You got to know, you got to have shit set up. We learned real fucking quick to set shit up ahead of time. And it's beautiful. Sorry, it's beautiful you shared that story about your son. I've always been very in tune with babies and dogs, but when I was on LSD, I would have not wanted to been around one. I'd be afraid. I'd be trying to be too delicate. I wouldn't want to. I don't know. I just didn't want to be that way. And a friend of mine had a dog, and I was petting it one time, and it was just weird petting it. I felt like one point it was bleeding or something. It could have just been the trip I was having, but yeah, that's amazing. That's a good trip. That sounds like everything went in the right flow that night because you got to have it. You got to have it set up. It ain't like with mushrooms, even where a few hours you're down and it's really not that as intense. With LSD, you don't know where you're going. You don't know if it's going to kick in 20 minutes, an hour, and when you peak, you don't know how bad it's going to hit you. I don't know how you took it in your day, but we got it on a sheet of 100 hits. It would come and it'd have a design on it, Bullwinkle or Jesus Christ Superstar, whatever. And each hit would be a couple bucks.
We had blotter acid, we had window pane.
Yeah, we had that too. Yeah,
and we also had the first time I ever did it was on a sugar cube with a little purple dot,
right.
on a sugar cube. That's the first time I ever did it. And but after that, we started getting the blotter acid that came on paper sheets, with different designs on it, or the window pane that was, it was clear, and we would take that and just put it and trip on.
Well, and also there was liquid, but we didn't see much of that here. You'd have to go down to San
No,
Francisco to get it. But
never.
Joe, we also had these little, they called them micro dots. But these were pebbles. They were little tiny pebbles. And some of these kids I know would put them in their eye like they would do liquid LSD.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would never.
I've seen people put the window pane in their eye.
No way. I hate even putting Visine in my eye. I can't even stand. I would never even.
I never did that myself. I always just put it on my tongue. Let it go from there.
Yeah, so did I. I can't stand anything up by my eye, even contacts. But yeah, I always just put it in my mouth and ate it. And one thing I've always tried to find out, and some people said yes, some people said no, whether or not LSD was smokable. And we never did try. I'm surprised we never did try it. But right as I got out of school and these kids in the late 90s, then these other drugs started coming around. Like, well, not that they were new. Like I never had access to ayahuasca and DMT, and then it came around, and after I'd gotten out of that, and I've never tried it, and then the LSD meth hybrid came along, which is ecstasy, which, see, I had read about in High Times when I was a freshman in high school, some city having it somewhere, and what a crazy high it was. And I was telling my buddies about it, and they're like, oh yeah, fuck right, that'd be a dream. And I'm like, whatever. But we'd mix meth and LSD. So I had that kind of high as a teenager, but then, that kind of stuff came out and after I was out of school. So I missed out on a lot of that. Have you ever tried ayahuasca or DMT or even peyote, mescaline? I've never had that.
Mescaline, but there was a substance that we called MDA and STP.
Yes.
And it was a type of acid, and there was some other stuff that I can't remember the names to. They just had initials.
Did it seem like did it seem anyway like kind of a speed, like a little bit of a speed hybrid with it?
It was more speedy, and your body was all tensed up, and fried, and so I didn't like those other trips. The acid was more of a something that I guess I could control, or something that I was familiar with. That other stuff I really didn't like.
Well, it was all clean too when you were younger. The thing we had to worry about in the late 80s and early 90s, Joe, is some of this shit we would get, right? It would still trip, you'd still trip, but it would be laced with strychnine. And that would wire you out and keep you up versus being able to go to sleep. You'd be up, tossing and turning.
Strychnine was bad, yeah. There was some acid that you would get that was laced with strychnine.
Your body cramp up. You felt like a rat, and taking some, your body all cramped up on it and shit like that. I remember taking it sometimes and laying in bed all night at school in the morning, and I'm still tripping the next day, seeing it glow off people, and that strychnine, you can tell it just, oh God, man, and you can't sleep.
We called it a body fry.
Oh God, totally.
Yeah. And there was back in the same era that I was doing the LSD, we had all kinds of pharmaceuticals that we were doing. I mean, we were doing Tuinals and Secanols and Blackbirds and Black Beauties, speed. We were
cross tops.
not
fucking
crosses, and we were
ludes,
doing uh,
ludes, quaaludes,
tabs,
ludes.
tabs, Quaaludes. Oh yeah, I used to sell Quaaludes by the hundreds. When we used to have tabs of THC, they came in like little pills about the size of um, I don't know. They were pretty small, like maybe a baby aspirin, the size of a baby aspirin, and they came in either pink or purple, and that denoted the strength. You know, purple was a little bit stronger than the pink. You know, and I remember we should take those and just go out to the park and just like hang out, and it was like a total different high than
Total stone
smoking
body
a
high,
joint.
like ingesting it. Yeah, yeah. That's, you know what, I like that high to a point, but man, I've had too much of it before, and I really didn't like the way it made my body tingle if I had too much of it. And then, of course, I don't know if that stuff would make you sleep for a long time if you took too much of it. But I wonder where in the hell you got them, because I know those other drugs you're talking about, Quaaludes, Black Beauties, those are bennies, benzodrines, they had went away by the time, they were just going away by the time I was in high school. So, but I remember the stories of kids in the 70s and 60s having access to all that shit. But these
Oh
THC
yeah.
pills you're talking about, where in the hell did you guys get those from then?
Well, there were just dealers around that had that stuff, and I don't know where they
Really?
got it. I back in what was it, the late '70s. Um, I had a friend of mine, and I used to be a rock concert promoter. I was the vice president of Capricorn Productions, and we did a lot of shows. We did like the Eagles, uh, we did Allman Brothers, we did ZZ Top, we did Chuck Berry, we did Redbone, we did one show for Fleetwood Mac. We did who else did we do? Shit, I can't remember anyway. But we should do all these shows, and we had a guy that lived in Chicago, and what we used to do is they used to have what they called a car train. You could take a car and put it on a train, and on the train and go to Chicago and get the car off the train and drive around the city or whatever. And we used to load that car up with like bales of pot, and so we would take the car train up to Chicago, and we'd dump these bales of pot onto this guy that we knew that claimed he was from Uranus. This guy was out there. I mean, he claimed he was an actual inhabitant from Uranus. You know, but he was a chemist, and he was like super intelligent. And what he used to do, he would mix up PCP. Back then we called it angel dust, and he would mix it up in his purest form, and we would bring it back to Florida. You know, we would trade him the pot for the PCP, and we were like the biggest distributors of PCP in South Florida back then in those days. And eventually back like right around 1980, I had to leave South Florida because the DEA was really getting close to us, and so I just left everything behind. Otherwise, I would probably be in jail right now for all that crap I used to do. And but getting back to the rock concerts, a lot of the groups that we used to promote as part of their promotion package, was we had to supply them with drugs. So we either gave them cocaine, like Charlie Daniels. We did Charlie Daniels. They didn't want any drugs, but they wanted like tons and tons of beer. Beer, backstage for them that they could either drink or take home or whatever. It was, one of their perks. Like the Eagles, when we did the Eagles, they wanted cocaine and young girls, so we supplied them with young girls, little runaways that we'd find on the beach, and we'd say, hey, you want to get backstage and see the Eagles? Yeah. So we'd pick the girls up, we take them backstage, and we give them to the Eagles, and we give them their drugs. It was a total different lifestyle. It was unbelievable. And so the PCP was also part of it. A lot of them liked the PCP. The pure stuff was really, really good. I mean, it was a really nice high. But once they started cutting it with all kinds of other crap, then that's when people started going crazy on this shit. But the pure stuff was really good, and it didn't make you crazy. It just give you a mellow high. Anyway, that was back then. You there? Hello? Oh God. Larry? Hello? Oh, what's going on?
And I'm back. And I just wanted to say real quick,
Okay.
yeah, I just want to say real quick on the PCP, man, but you could get fucked up on it. My cousin who died of a heroin overdose later on, she went to somewhere for 2 weeks and was on a PCP binge at like 12. And this was in the, I don't know, shit, this was in the early mid 80s. And she came back, Joe, she was never the same again. She had psychiatric problems her whole life. She was very, very, really a strange
Yeah.
person and ended up dying of a heroin overdose. But that shit's an elephant tranquilizer, is what it was medically made for.
Yeah, that was because stuff we were getting was cut with all kinds of other crap. The stuff that we used to sell was so pure that we didn't do a line of it. We would do like a match head of it, and that would get you high for like 12 hours. But it was like a mellow high. It was like, or maybe if we did a lot of it, maybe we would get crazy on it. But we knew enough not to do a crazy amount.
It's kind of like an interdimensional high. I noticed the one time I did it, 15 minutes seemed like 3 hours, but not that it was a bad thing. It just seemed like time was, my time perception was completely gone, even more so than when I, taken LSD all those times. And, you mentioned getting drugs for these entertainers. Okay. Like I know Henley and Fry heard were heroin addicts. So were Aerosmith. A lot of these bands did coke, heroin, but I really think like this is going to sound strange to people, but like Aerosmith and you take the Eagles, I think their best music was made when they were high on opiates. I mean, yes, the 80s stuff was good in the 90s by Aerosmith, but when they were in that 70s groove with that shit they had, like Last Child and what, the music that they sang, Dream On and, some of their other hits, and the Eagles, same thing with some of their music. It just seems to me like, hey, I don't know if you noticed that, but it seems like opiates just really, before you come crashing down on them, you really can flourish.
I play the guitar, and back then, everybody told me that, dude, you're so fucking good. Why? How come you're not famous? When I was high on whatever it was, whether it was cocaine, speed, uh, or pot, or whatever it was,
Barbiturates.
Barbiturates, I could play so much better, and it was the music just like flew out of me, and so I understood why these groups, wanted that stuff, because it made them, I guess, more aware of the universe or whatever it was. I don't know, it made them more conscious. And people used to tell me that dude, you're as good as Santana, and I was really good. I was really, 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 really good. I'm still, halfway decent, but back then I was like super, super good. And I could have gone on to be a superstar, but, and they always ask me this question, why are you not famous? To be, I was actually totally, physically afraid of being famous, because I did not want to be like out there, in front of all these people. I mean, I've done a couple of concerts when I've had bands, and I've done a couple of concerts here in Hollywood. There's these band shells. There's one on the beach, and there's one at Young Circle, and it's a regular band shell. And, I had groups and we would be up there and we'd do concerts. And it was really overwhelming, because I guess being an empath, I was feeling all this,
Oh,
interaction
I
between
bet.
myself. And so I just couldn't take it. It was just too intense, too intense. And so I said, no, I don't want fame. I don't want fame because I do not want to be in front of a million people or 1,000 people or whatever. Just a couple of hundred was too much, and I did not want that. And so I just said, I'm just playing my music for me and for my friends, and that's it. I don't want to do it for the rest of the world because
I think a
it's
lot
just
of starseeds can relate to that. I think sometimes subconsciously we're afraid of our own greatness, and then it's part of it too. It's not our mission being here, but I think
right.
sometimes we're just, we take that next step. It's our subconscious is like, nah, that's not the direction that you're going to want to go in, because who knows, Joe, you could have been famous, but you could be dead by now.
Yeah,
Because
true.
when you're
Yeah,
touring like that, all the drugs, and I've seen it too, because I've
yeah,
done personal security for a lot of famous rock stars too, and they do, and they get high, and then it kicks in when they're on stage. No matter how fucked up they are, that green light turns on when they're on stage. I mean, I had Rick Springfield go out and practice, go back to his room. With him, I know he was in the bathroom slamming, and then when he asked me, the first thing he asked me is, "Oh, is this concert going to be outside?" And I'm like, yeah. And I was thinking in my mind, no, you just practiced out there at that big stage set up outside for practice, and you're going to do the
yeah.
real show in here. Yeah, fucking who, the guy from Butch Cassidy, oh, raindrops keep falling on mine. Who's that? BJ Thomas, right? So he's doing a
Yeah.
two-show concert, right? And I take him back for the second one, and he asks me 4 times from the elevator, from his room to the elevator to the concert hall, is this going to be the same crowd? Is this a different crowd or the same crowd? I said, no, it's a different crowd, different crowd. And even asked the lady at the door, is it, the marketing lady, is this the same crowd or different? He had no idea what the hell he was doing. I should have said to him, no, Mr. Thomas, it's the same group. So why don't you play, instead of your few hit songs, why don't you play some Christmas hymns or some shit? But yeah, it's just amazing how, but that kind of lifestyle, man, you're on the road all the time. You got to take something to get up, take something to go to bed, take something to, unless you're completely in tune with the source. I don't see how anybody could get away with that lifestyle without getting fucking high. And if they're lying, if they're not, they're lying.
I know. I mean, I saw it firsthand because as a promoter, we're backstage with all these groups, and I see firsthand how they are, and I was content to be backstage scenes. I was content to not have to be out on stage because even though I know I was just as good as any of those bands could be, I was just as good a musician. My voice is terrible. I can't sing with a lick, but I can play, and but I would love to be a singer. Now that is something I wouldn't mind doing. I
Well,
wouldn't
yeah,
mind.
I know how that goes. I mean, yeah, I'm a hit singer myself. But the one time I was really duped, I got to just tell this story. Like, I always see how Kenny Rogers on TV and shit, and like, he seems like a nice, family, down to earth guy. And then, dude, he is the biggest fucking prick you could ever imagine, dude. He's really standoffish. Real, he had a contract to sign so many autographs. He did that. He wouldn't do any more. When I went to his room to get him, I thought I'd be funny, Joe, and I said to him, "Hi, Mr. Rogers. I just dropped in to see what condition your condition was in," which he didn't. He doesn't play that song anymore.
Buffalo Springfield. That's what he was with the Buffalo Springfield. That's the song he sang when he was with the Buffalo Springfield, wasn't it? Uh-oh, did we get cut off again?
I thought Buffalo Springfield. The only hit I knew by them was the Something's Going Down, or what's that song? The Vietnam protest song. What a field day for the heat. 1,000 people in the street. Stop.
I
But
might, I might be.
you are
My
Kenny
eyes are.
Rogers. Yeah, Kenny Rogers was the first edition. They had that and like
Okay.
Ruby. Yeah, and then
Right,
he
right.
turned.
That, well, yeah, it was Buffalo Springfield. Yeah, you're right. It was the first edition. Yeah, you're right. I totally zoned out there for a minute. It's all that L.
But he was a dick. He was a dick, man, totally, and he would
I can
never
see that.
sing. He don't sing this.
I could see that in his eyes. Just by looking at him, I could tell. Oh, he's a prick. I would never want to meet him just by looking at his eyes. When you watch the shows on TV about like whether it's Steve Wilkos or Maury or whatever, and you do all these lie detector tests. I can tell right away if the guy's lying or not just by looking in their eyes. I can tell.
I usually can too. Kenny, yeah. Kenny had me do, but you know what? Now that I look back on it, Joe, it's funny you said. Now that I look back on it, my intuition knew it because I kind of his eyes. He did look kind of pricky, but I thought, oh, he's so charming, and I thought, oh God, certainly got to be a happy-go-lucky kind of halfway nice guy. But no, his demands are really strange. He's really like I don't know. These demands, like you said, are funny. Like Eddie Money, the 2 times I went Eddie Money, he had to have a whole big bowl of green M&Ms in his dressing room. That was his thing.
Yeah. Yeah. They had some strange requests. You're right. They did. And that was part of their contract. It was part of the contract, but not part of the original. I mean, the on paper contract, it was part of the contract they had with the promoter. They had to supply them with certain things, illegal things.
Well, I want to touch on too, as far as the '70s drugs go. I mean, all those drugs you mentioned that they only had then, like the Quaaludes, the pills, but doctors would have prescribed. Man, anybody like here, my mom was telling me you could go into the doctor and ask, try to get on a diet, and they'd give you benzodrines, which were amphetamines, better than any speed that they have now for sure. And then the housewives of the '60s, of course, the craze of getting hooked on Valium. And of course, the Rolling Stones wrote a song about it, Mother's Little Helper, because they were tired of getting shit by parents about what bad boys they were and bad influence. So they wrote Mother's Little Helper, and it's a really telling fucking song. Check it out. And people have heard it before and go, what the fuck's this song about by them? It's about the housewives of the '60s being hooked on Valium, and they did it in response to an attack on them, from suburban housewives. So it quite interesting with the pills. Oh, one thing, the weed, Joe, in the late '80s, it stopped really being import because it was grown here. Plus, the DEA with Reagan, they fucking started checking ships like crazy. And so the Maui Wowie, the Acapulco Gold, Colombian Gold, Panama Red, all that shit, Kona Gold, right? It went away. And we started growing it here, and even better, though, is the thing. So it was twofold. We started, especially in Northern California, Southern Oregon, Humboldt, which personally I think was the best outdoor weed in the world. But it's all most is indoor now, but the weed back then, you remember all the imports, those names I mentioned? Does those ring a bell?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Panama Red, we used to get Acapulco Gold, Colombian Gold, Jamaican Trip weed. We used to get all that.
Thai stick and chocolate Thai.
Thai sticks, British Honduras. We used to get a lot of that imported stuff, and but back then, like a 4-finger bag, an ounce was like $20.
Is that what you would call a lid? Is that what you would have called a lid back then?
It was like $20, and it was like $25 for the good stuff, And now I was talking to my daughter the other day, and they're paying like $300 for an ounce. I'm going, holy shit.
They're not in Oregon. It's $125 to $150 here for an ounce of really, really, really good dank Oregon bud. But I mean, with that stuff, okay, I know that from my research, right, the Sinsemilla bud without the seeds, that really didn't start hitting the scene until the mid or late '70s. Now, would you get any? Was that old Kona Gold and the aqua? It'd probably be a lot of loose shit. But would you have buds in those too? And were they stony at all?
Yeah. No, we used to get buds. And a lot of the buds that we used to get, no matter where it came from, had seeds in it. And I used to grow my own. I used to take pots, and put some nice soil in it, and I'd start growing my own. I even made a terrarium with pot plants growing in it, and it was really easy to grow because now you can't get seeds, I guess.
Not out here, Joe. You couldn't fucking. It's been so good for so many generations out here, man. You couldn't buy a seed, but it's mostly still, though. The good thing is it's organic. Organic cloning is really good with it, and they started doing that, I guess, in the '70s because the seedless bud came, from Humboldt and places, but they called it Sinsemilla then, which I know I'm not telling you anything you don't know and didn't see. But so that came across. Did it ever occur to you when you were growing it back then? Did it ever occur to you that okay, that the see what happens is people out there is you're growing weed, right? You've got to separate the male from the female because what'll happen is that male's no fucking good. It sucks. You can't get high. It'll pollinate the female with seeds. But if you can get rid of that before it pollinates it, those little pockets will develop into little THC packets, which, you got two good things. You got no seed in your weed and you got all that extra THC because once that's pollinated, half the THC is killed. and also the there's seeds in them. But do you remember when the first seedless buds started coming around, what it was like or what you thought?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, we called it sensei, and sensei was uh, like two fingers instead of four fingers. Two fingers was like $20, so it was like double the price, and the price went up, but it was like so much better, and we used to get I remember we used to get like Lebanese hash, blonde Lebanese hash,
Yeah.
hash oil, hash oil. That was something else, man. You take one hit and it like expands in your lungs and you blow out like a room full of smoke out of just one hit. That stuff was amazing.
You know what I'll tell you? It's what's funny is I always thought is like, okay, if you had a whole bunch of resin from just purely really, really good bud from then, when I was growing up, if it was really all good bud resin, I thought that was better to me than any hash I had. Like if say you had a whole bunch of Cincy hash or Cincy resin, I'd rather have that over the hash, I think.
We used to save all our roaches and open them up that were like totally loaded with resin, and then roll them in a joint,
Yes.
and that was
Yep.
like super blend.
Yeah, when my cousin would come up from California, the one was talking about earlier, she lived in an Indian reservation on Humboldt County, right in the heart of it, and she would do that with them. She'd roll all that bud and joints, and then she'd roll. God, that was one kick-ass resin joint when it was rolled into that. And we had stuff like Purple Kush too. That was really good of mellow stone. That was before all the shit was sprayed on it, and the government spraying paraquat on it and shit like that. I mean, and you can tell when you get unorganized, chemically imbalanced weed because you get this really weird body feeling and paranoid. I mean, it looks good, but it's obviously not organic. It's obviously been fucked with and grown in some chemicals. And I know, out here it's mostly all organic, but once in a while you get some shit that was like, oh God, it's just totally different. It's not that mellow 70s, 80s kind of have fun, laughy kind of high. That's hard to, that's
I
hard to come by.
haven't smoked in a while. The last time I smoked weed was maybe a couple of years ago with my daughter. She had some really good stuff, and I just two hits, man, and I'm gone. I was gone. That stuff was so potent.
Well, for me too, all I can handle is a hit or two. That's all I want. But when I was a kid, man, when I was 14 and you helping well, I won't say what I was doing. I was working a little bit for the Mexican mafia and the Crips running shit, but um it was I could smoke it all day, Joe. I could smoke it. I don't care how good it was. I wouldn't be happy till you smoked your whole fucking bag with me. But then after
Yeah,
that, I could only handle a couple hits. It's weird. It's not just that it got stronger. It's strange.
I know. I used to wake up in the morning and smoke a joint, and on my way to work, I'd smoke a joint. And break time at work, I'd smoke a joint. Lunchtime, I'd smoke a joint. On the way home from work, I'd smoke a joint, get home, and we'd be high all night.
Yep.
Be smoking all day long. And it was like you got so used to it that it was almost like smoking cigarettes, but you didn't smoke that many, maybe 4 or 5 joints a day. But uh,
Yeah, but when you're a weed
after
junkie like that, I know when you're a weed junkie like that, like I was, it sounds like you were, it gets to the point where you're not really getting that stone and enjoying it anymore, but yet you kind of need it to take off that edge. So it's kind of one of them things where, yeah, and I hear you, we would do that. I'd get up in the morning, get high, go to school, get high at lunch, go to work. And my last 2 years of high school, was a closing manager at McDonald's, and I'd do shit. I was on meth all night to go to, I graduated from high school, but meth all night, weed all day at school. And now if I got stoned in the morning, dude, I wouldn't want to even do it. I would be like, fuck, that would just be a drag.
I wouldn't want to leave the house.
No, I wouldn't either. It's funny how we are when we're back then. Like, I mean, I can't believe I went to school on LSD and shit. I wouldn't even take it now. You'd have to pay me. I don't think there's an amount of money to take it. It just, I don't know. I got what I needed out of it. And I don't think I'd like to be locked into that trip now.
I'm stuck on beer and cigarettes now. That's it for me.
Me too. Beer and cigarettes, and then a hit of weed now and then. But it's all I need is a hit, really. I mean, that's it. I've done two at the most, and it's got to be at nighttime. I don't like during the day when I got to do shit, or in the morning.
I
It's
would
just
smoke I would smoke it, but I get drug tested from my doctor. The doctor that I go to, they drug test me once a month. Why I don't know, but they do it anyway.
because
I guess for the insurance.
you're probably on pain pills.
Yeah, yeah. I'm on prescription pain medication because of my back.
You want to tell the
But
audience out there, hey, tell the audience out there what brand and what strength you're on.
oh, I'm on a very low dose of Percocets. I used to take. I was actually hooked on OxyContin for like 10
So
years,
was
and
I.
it was
I
really
had the
bad.
highest tolerance ever documented.
I was going to like 5 different doctors, doctor shopping, and selling my pills so that I could pay for the next doctor, and then running out of pills and having to buy it on the street. And then when I ran out of that, I had to buy heroin. I mean, I was really bad, really, really bad. And so I quit for like 6 years, totally quit. And then I got hospitalized a couple years ago because of my blood pressure went sky high. And because I had been off my meds for like 6 years, I was just tolerating the pain and just dealing with it. And I was in a hospital for like 10 days. They couldn't figure out why my blood pressure was so high. And after all these tests, I mean, they were taking out of me. They were like doing chest x-rays and sonograms and brain scans and, every test you can imagine. And they finally said, okay, here's what we conclude. Your back pain, because I had a back surgery where they put 6 screws in my spine. So your
Mm-hmm.
back pain is causing your blood pressure to rise. So we're going to put you on a regimen of pain medication that will keep your blood pressure down. So that's the only reason I'm taking them, is because it keeps my blood pressure down. Because when the
Well, it's
blood
such a low
pressure,
dose. It's such a low dose. You're probably on the 5 milligrams, and you know what? I'm sure you're not getting high off of them because your tolerance goes right back with that shit to where it was, real quick. And I mean, I was too. I was had the second highest tolerance ever documented. I lost $100,000 a year job. I was using 10 80 milligram oxycontins a day. A doctor got fired over it. 2 week, I was getting 90 oxycontin 80s, and I hear they go for a lot of money now. It's been almost 10 years since I've had any of those. But yeah, I was getting and shit. I was snorting them. I was eating fentanyl patches, all kinds of crazy shit. And it just, wow, man, it was fun while it lasted, and it helped me build a successful career. And then until it all came crashing down, and I went into a coma for 9 hours. But I quit with Suboxone, which is a miracle drug that people don't want. The
yeah,
government.
that's what I took. Yeah, that's what I took. Yeah,
Yeah, well, they
it
have
got me
they
off.
have they have drugs like that for all drugs they keep hidden. Where, say, Uncle Bob was an alcoholic and now he's on this medicine. Well, shit, now Uncle Bob only needs to start with. Uncle Bob only needs 2 or 3 double shots a day at different times to maintain. He's fine and he doesn't crave anymore or anything. And then it goes down. But you have drugs like that, and the cartels lose money. Big pharma loses money. Think about it, Joe. If you were prescribed your first pain pills back in the day and your tolerance never went up on them ever, and you just use your monthly amount, what would be, you wouldn't have to go doctor shopping. You wouldn't have to go like I did. You wouldn't have to go to the streets. You wouldn't have to go to heroin. Couldn't find any heroin. I would have done it some of the times when I was jonesing, but we didn't have it here yet. Now it's here because the painkillers now are such a big epidemic. And yeah, heroin's cheap to start with at first, but then your tolerance, people don't understand with opiates. And I was talking about this with Bridget the other night. Your tolerance goes up every 21 days. There's about 20% of the human population that can just strictly take it forever, and their tolerance would never go up on it. But the 80% of the people, your tolerance flips every 21 days, and you need more and more and more and more. And with Suboxone, it stuffs all those receptors. Plus, it makes your body feel good. Plus, over time, you yourself want less and less of it. Okay, and they have drugs
Right.
like that for these other drugs, and they keep them hidden. And methadone, while good intention, your tolerance goes way up on that shit. I'd buy it off the street, and I would take 750 milligrams at a time of it. And people are like, whoa, what? Yeah, no shit. Your tolerance goes up and up and up. And you're a star seed. When you're a star seed, your tolerance, you can take drugs, massive amounts, a bunch of them, and it doesn't show until you finally hit that wall.
Right. I used to buy the wafers of methadone. Have you seen those? It had like a
That's what I was talking about, Joe. That's what I was talking about. They don't have anymore, but I was buying the 40 milligram wafers, and I would take, Joe, seriously. I was at my worst before it ended. I was taking 12 of those at a time.
wow.
Yeah, I had the second highest tolerance they'd ever documented on the West Coast by addictionologists at the time. Some guy somewhere had a little bit more than me. I was like, what the fuck? But I had a neighbor that moved about a year ago, and that kid He was close. I used to get Suboxone. I quit getting them though because people were bugging me about them, and I was down to one every 3 days. And he said, "Fuck it, I ain't gonna drive over to Roseburg anymore, which is an hour away, and get them." My dad would Jew me out of them, or Kyle next door, my old neighbor, and he that kid's tolerance got, well, last I knew it was about where mine was, and that was a few years ago. So I feel for these people because your body, when you're withdrawing from that shit, it feels like rubber bands breaking off inside of you. And it's not like you get old people that'll go, "Oh, well, I look at my age. You don't need any pain pills. You're young." But those kids, even if you're 15 withdrawing, you're in more pain than an 80-year-old person with a bunch of physical ailments. Your body, it's hell. There's nothing like opiates, man. It's really just, our brain produces them naturally, so it doesn't interact. So like with me, my doctor basically told me I don't have any more dopamine left in my brain, and I feel it. I don't really. And your tolerance goes right back up. Like once in a blue fluke of a moon, I've had a couple Vicodins from the dentist or something, right? I'll give them away, but I'll take a few. It's okay. And then I really don't get off on them, but I kind of do. But my tolerance is, I know that one more time of taking them, my tolerance is going to be right back where it was. And even if I didn't take any for 2 years, Joe, I would have to take, I'd have to take at least 4 or 5 10-milligram Percocets. So if you're on the fives, I'd have to take like 8 of those to even get a feeling off of it at all.
I just do it to keep my blood pressure down.
Yeah.
It really doesn't stop the pain. It just makes it tolerable to where my body is not reacting to the pain and shooting my blood pressure up. Because when I was hospitalized, I mean, I couldn't breathe. I was dizzy. Couldn't catch my breath. I couldn't stand up. I couldn't walk. I mean, I was like, I could have had a heart attack or a stroke just because my blood pressure was so high. And they told me it's because of your pain, because you're in pain all the time. And I go, do you take any pain medication? I said, no, I quit for like 6 years. And so they said, well, you need to get back on them because that's the only thing that's going to bring your blood pressure down. And so that's the only reason I take them now. Otherwise, I would never take any more opiates at all in my whole entire life. I would never.
Right. But even though you wouldn't take any more, are you ever worried about, okay, because of that helping your blood pressure, are you worried about your tolerance just naturally going up, or does it seem to be just kind of, yeah?
No, and what I do though is I limit myself. I know exactly how many I'm supposed to take a day, and sometimes I won't take a whole pill at a time. Sometimes I'll only take a quarter, just to take that little edge off, to ease the pain a little bit, and then I'll take another quarter, maybe an hour later, and I'll spread one pill out. I'll make it like time release instead of like getting the whole dose at one time. I'll time release over a span of 3 or 4 hours. That way I'm not taking, one pill at a time and getting that shot, when it finally hits you after 20 minutes. And you get that.
Yeah. Peel the coating off the time release, take that oxy, peel the coating. I used to do that, peel the coating off of it so you'd get that blast at once. But yeah, that's good. How long have you been on these? And I mean, do you think they would ever up you?
It's only been about 6 or 8 months that I've been.
Okay, well that's good, but you're still on the same dose. It hasn't increased. Now, are you pretty private about it, that you get them? Do you have friends or family ever try to Jew them out of you, or do you kind of keep it quiet that you have them? Well, not now.
Knows that I take them are my wife and daughter, and they have asked me for a couple every now and then. And my daughter suffers from lupus, so I did really feel bad for her because she was in a lot of pain. So I gave her a couple. My wife just had hip surgery, and she ran out, so I gave her a couple. But other than that, nobody's approached me, and I don't really tell anybody that I'm on them. So
no, there's no point in it. But yeah, I would do the same. I would kick them, do that too. Like I said, if I get a script now and then for the dentist, I just give it all to my dad and stepmom, and I might just for fun, I'll take a couple, but it doesn't, if I'm in severe pain, but it doesn't really do anything for me like that. I'm lucky to be alive. It's just, yeah. And pain is a motherfucker, man. I mean, they'll get you on morphine patches. I used to take the fentanyl patches and eat the gel out of them. Now you can't do that. They just make them in the strip. And I found that out because I was helping an old lady clean out her house as she was moving, a neighbor of ours, right? And I found the smallest of them they make. And I'm like, oh, wow, I'm going to have fun. I haven't had this in years. I'm going to eat it. It's low, but it should hit me. Well, no, it didn't, because it was it was like a strip, like a Band-Aid. They don't make them like that no more, where there's that gel in them because people were, taking them out to jail out with syringes and shit. Nurses were, and they were supposed to last on me 3 days, and I eat 2 or 3 a day of them. I, it gets crazy with opiates. It's just a nightmare, bro.
Totally afraid to give up because that's why I'm consciously keeping it in check. I'm limiting myself to exactly how many I need per day, and that's it. And sometimes, I've gone sometimes like towards the end of the month, um, I would just hold on to them. I wouldn't even take them. I would like maybe go a couple of days get in all, and pat myself on the back. No, but then the pain would come back, and I said, oh, I want to go back in the hospital, so I better take one, just to ease the pain a little bit. Because like right now, I'm in pain right now, just sitting down. I can't sit for more than 10 minutes without being in excruciating pain. And
Oh my God, man. Have they ever talked about putting a morphine pump in you, or is that something you would even want to go down that road again with anymore? And you sounds like you're doing a great job with the maintenance dose on that 6 to 8 months. And you sometimes take less than that. You're just using it for that blood pressure. Basically, you're using it like a blood pressure med.
right. And what they're asking me now is they want to give me a shot in the spine, like every 3 months or every 6 months or wherever it is. But I say no, I do not want that shot because I'm just afraid that they're just gonna like flinch a little bit, and then next thing you know, I'm paralyzed.
Is
For
that like the
2 days.
epidural, Joe? Is that an epidural? What you're talking about?
Yeah,
That they give,
yeah,
and folks out there, they give this to women in labor. Of course, women know this. They have the option to get an epidural, but my tolerance is so high when I have surgeries, I have to have an epidural to be put out. And then I'm not on morphine when I'm out. I'm on hydromorphine, which is an extreme tolerance of it because, yeah.
put me on it out. Let me tell you something. If I could buy Demerol on the street, I would because it's such a beautiful freaking drug. You get such a
Really, it
beautiful.
never did it really for me as high. It made me feel good and go to bed and relax like that, but it would kind of zone me out a little bit. You know what I mean with Demerol, but I would, I don't know. I always kind of thought it was weaker, or my perception was, but when I've had it a few times, I just went to sleep.
Yeah, it's like a euphoric high to me. It's really like to me, it's like I don't know,
Well,
just
some
your
people
whole
too,
body.
Joe. Some people can get off on like, okay, Xanax or Valium and diazepam and lorazepam and all that and Ativan. But if I take them, I haven't had any long time, but I come across them like if I'm having trouble sleeping or something, it's good for sleep for a long time, but it don't. I didn't, it never really did it for me, like being around and hanging out. I mean, my grandfather was prescribed them for pain in the late 60s because they didn't have anything. It was in the late 60s for pain, it was codeine, and then it went straight to morphine. They didn't really have oxy and Vicodin. So he'd be on two of the blue Valium a day, the 10s, well, at one time. And it was great if he was up moving around, but once you sit down on that stuff, yeah. Anyway, you know what I mean? Once you sit down on that, you're done. I don't know what you think of that stuff. Have you ever dealt with Valium or Xanax?
I tried it one time and I said never again. I can't tolerate it. It just puts me to sleep. I'm groggy for 2 days. No, not for me.
Yeah, it's
That's
not for
another.
me either. It's a bummer. I mean, I'm claustrophobic, so like when I've had to have oh, I don't know, CT scans and shit where you have to go in that tube and stuff. I'm so claustrophobic. I have to have a couple of them. And last time I took them too late, and I just couldn't do it. I had to have them get me out of there, and I didn't do it. And then it hit me on the way home. So, yeah, I don't really care for them, but a lot of people were on them in the 60s. And if you keep going on them, I guess that's the key. But they never really did it for me, man. I was, I liked weed when I was younger and then opiates. But yeah, teach their own.
Yeah, not for me. Not for me. Hey, listen.
Yeah,
I got
I
to
think
get going.
it's about time to wrap up the show, man. I think I feel my energy sensing you need to kind of stretch. Your back's bugging you. Any real quick last words of wisdom and love for people out there, and whatever you want to say, man. Here's your 1 minute of fame.
Okay. All I'm asking anybody in this world right now is to have tolerance and love for anyone that you come across, no matter how they treat you. Just don't take it personally, and just have tolerance. And to me, tolerance is the key, because once you start bringing in any negative vibes into your being, then you become a different person. You're not you. You're someone else. And don't be that person. Just be the real you, and be the you that we are all born to be, and that is a loving, caring entity in this universe. And that's basically all we got to say for now.
That was awesome, brother. Thank you so much. I really appreciate coming on here and talking with you like that. Our flow is starting to get a lot better, and it's. I just want to tell everybody, echo what Joe said out there. Much love. And I know that sounds cliche, but I mean, I don't know any other way to put it in Earth terms. But just try to feel me and know that I mean it. And of course, I've got to do the standard thing, plug myself. Of course, yours truly, Rocken Larry Locken. You can find me on the Palladian Light Grid Project page on Facebook, as well as the channel on YouTube. Now the Palladian Light Grid channel is, we do little more lighthearted things like this and political. And, of course, I have my 10 songs I sing on there, and we did our story of the tobacco gods. But you can also find me at the big group, or the big YouTube channel, Palladian Express Productions, where we do, shows about extraterrestrials. And of course, if anybody's listening, they know Munich rights, things of that nature, just things that, metaphysical things that we're into quantum physics. But you could also find me on Facebook. Each one of those have their own face on the Facebook page. Fuck, man, I'm all over the board because there's so many things. I'm in every motherfucking Palladian group almost on there. I created probably the majority of them. No, I'm not saying that to brag, but anyway, I've been about 40 regional groups, 20 pages. The best way you can really solve all this right away is go to a page called Palladian Groups and Pages. Now, there's a group that says that too, that's mine, but forget that. Go to the page, Palladian Groups and Pages, and that'll show you every page and group that I've started, and a couple others that I help admin. And with that being said, also I'd like to have you tune into my webpage, LarryLocken.wix, at PalladianProgressivePro.com. That has a link to both channels, and it's also got a donation button on the bottom to help me get some better equipment for this shit. It takes 20 seconds to donate. You can donate $1, $2, $3, $4, $5. Okay, now that I said all that spill, I want to wish everybody much love, and hang tight in there through these energies. You new waivers coming in. Just go within. If you need to ask some questions, for reference, fine. But go within. You know it all already. Everything you need is within you. And with that, Joe, we're going to send a big cosmic dating game kiss out to the universe. Okay.